Is he alright? Zheng sighed and asked Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao pulled out the needles from Zhang Jie. He's basically fine. The virus didn't spread into his body. I've stopped his bleeding with the spray and bandaged him up. There shouldn't be any major problem. His arm has to wait until we go back to God's dimension. Let him continue sleeping for now. Everyone was exhausted after 2 difficult fights. The last fight with the tentacles were especially thrilling. No one wanted to move a finger after they had the chance to relax. Zhang Jie was the only one to get wounded in the second fight. The injury was serious. Half his arm was cut off by Zheng. Fortunately, it wasn't life-threatening, and it didn't influence the team that much. He was a newbie without any power to begin with, so he continued being powerless afterward. Cheng Xiao put away the needles. This cut is very smooth. If you can find his arm, modern technology is capable of reattaching it back to him. Haha. Zheng suddenly recalled the werewolf doctor from Team India. Do you know of any means to reattach limbs? Including bones and nerves? Cheng Xiao thought about it and said. Perhaps God has the medical tools to accomplish it, but I can't do it currently. Connecting the nerves or bones in a short period of time are not possible for me without the tools. Zheng nodded. You have the chance to exchange sci-fi and magical medical tools after this movie. We have to survive this movie first. Lan had been driving quietly. Zheng didn't rush her and just sat next to her looking out at the dark road in front. After some time, he asked. Were you afraid under those situations? What if a monster attacked you? Her eyes were still closed, but she laughed. I am not scared, because I know you, and everyone else will protect me. Even though I can't really fight, but I trust you can kill our enemies, you can protect me. You put the safety of your back to Yingkong during the fights, isn't that your way of showing trust? Zheng scratched his head. I actually didn't think so much. I just wanted to kill all the monsters and not let them get into the bus. Then I swung the knife, used the Book of the Dead, dodge and attack. You just reminded me that I did put my safety to Yingkong. Yingkong smiled. Not only you but Yingkong did the same. The two of you never worried about any monster attacking from behind. Perhaps it was this condition that allowed you to protect the bus from both sides. Yingkong blushed as she was taking a nap, then she turned herself around. Zheng didn't notice it but Lan laughed. As they were talking, the sound of helicopters whirling came from above. Everyone woke up from the nap and looked out the windows. Several helicopters were floating above them. One slowly lowered itself. Then they heard a clank, like a hard object landed on top of the bus. Zheng flipped up to the top. There was a black, metallic case. Though it wasn't as heavy as he thought. After he returned inside, the others gathered around him. Inside the case was a satellite phone that was vibrating. Zheng picked it up and heard a young man's voice. Hello, Mr. Zheng. I am in charge of the current situation of the city. In some sense, I am also responsible for your safety. You see the helicopters above? Once you do anything abnormal, they will destroy your bus. Don't think that the corporation is afraid of destroying a valuable sample. In fact, instead of letting you escape and become our enemy, it's better to eliminate you right now. Zheng took a breath and said. I am heading toward the corporation's building in the city. So your threats are meaningless. The anti-umbrella mercenaries I mentioned had appeared. I think you should have found them through the surveillance system. If you don't mind, I hope you can send some helicopters over to kill them. The man sounded dissatisfied. Yes. There is an armed group of unknown originals chasing after you. However, they are still over 50 kilometers away, so you don't have to worry. Mr. Zheng, if you are worried about their threats, why don't you take the helicopter to the building? We have enough firepower to protect you, or you can leave the city and head to our headquarters. Zheng gave him a cold smile. Do you think I will abandon my comrades and run by myself? I will let you know that those mercenaries surpass your imagination. You're wrong if you think you can easily deal with them. The man shouted back. Don't you? Send 6 groups to attack those mercenaries. Tell them to capture at least 2 alive. Have 1 helicopter escort the bus. A cold voice interrupted him. The man immediately shut up. The voice continued. Zheng, as an employee, you should know that the corporation will do what's best for its interest, and at the same time is willing to take on risks. You can propose requests within our tolerance. If the requests go beyond our tolerance, we will use force or simply destroy the city. Zheng replied. I only have 2 requests. Give us a military helicopter. My comrades and I need to reach the checkpoint. They will receive inspection there, and if they are not infected, I hope you can let them go. I will stay on helicopter and watch them go, then you can take me to the headquarters. I know you are concerned about me, so I won't go down the helicopter. The voice was silent for a while. Okay, I accept your requests on behalf of the board of directors. The helicopter will arrive on top of the company building half hour after you reach there. Since this is an exchange, we hope you can fight our strongest bioweapon after arriving at the company. If you win, you can obtain qualification as a core employee. Zheng nodded. We will discuss those later. Take us to the building first. It will take about an hour to reach the building. We've been fighting for a day and night and are hungry. Please have the guards prepare a meal. Canned or packaged food, or food transported from outside. I don't want my comrades to become zombies. No problem, these are trivial. As a trading partner, the corporation will not attack you. I am expecting you at the headquarters. Goodbye, Mr. Zheng. Zheng let out a sigh of relief. He felt better when he saw 6 of 7 helicopters flew northwest. Team Devil shouldn't get to them unharmed with the air-to-ground missiles of the helicopters. As long as it can waste their resources or even kill 1 or 2 people, it would be a big help. The bus resumed going forward. Although there were still zombies on the road, they were few and scattered. The most they saw were 3 creepers together on a wall. However, an air-to-ground mission burst the creepers into pieces. Perhaps that was an attempt to display the military helicopter's power or to warn Zheng. This helicopter had been restless the whole way, killing even zombies far off. Zheng disdained the helicopter. Even Hung's arrow could shoot it down, and not to mention his sniper rifle. Of course, it was also powerful and threatening to the group. Alice was feeling blue after she learned they were heading toward the corporation's building. After some time had passed, she said, "It's better that I leave the group. Even though this is going to take me out of the city, but I don't want to return to the corporation anymore. It gives me terror. Plus, I want to expose the corporation to the world. So just let me leave." Zheng immediately said, "Rest assured. I will seize control of the helicopter once we get in. Everyone can leave the city via the helicopter. Don't take going to the headquarters as real. Who actually wants to go there? I just want to get my comrades and Angela to the checkpoint. Her father's waiting for her and my comrades can leave the city." The plot had been changed that Angela might not get shot. Zheng didn't think the director had the energy to care about a researcher with his situation now. So Angela's father might not die also and should be waiting at the checkpoint. "Let's get to the top of the building first. Alice, don't worry. I will get everyone out of the city safely," Zheng muttered. At the same time, the 6 helicopters quickly approached Team Devil. They saw the coach driving on the streets. The first helicopter aimed a missile at it. However, before the pilot pulled the trigger, a wave of black flame flew across and the helicopter was cut in half, then it exploded. Clone Zheng floated in the air with his black wings and a broadsword. That attack was obviously from his sword. Another pilot was shocked for a few seconds, then he shouted and aimed a machine gun at Zheng. Countless bullets flew at Zheng, but his body transformed into numerous bats. These bats scattered and assembled next to the helicopter. As soon as his hands were formed, he swung the sword at it. Another wave of flame followed by explosions that could be seen miles away. Clone Zheng smiled coldly. "Don't leave anyone alive," Clone Xian said in his mind. "Not going to leave a helicopter? It should chase up to them in half an hour." Clone Zheng laughed. "No. Play this out slowly. What fun is it to finish them so quick? Plus, he's my original. Don't you feel the anticipation? Just like a cat hunting mice. Let them believe they are completing the mission and can escape. Then. Haha." He laughed out loud with a creepy killing intent. The scar on his face and the wings on his back made him look like a devil. Inside Team China's bus several minutes later. The satellite phone rang again. Zheng picked it up. It was the cold voice from before. "Mr. Zheng. I am asking on behalf of our board, who are the mercenaries chasing you? What power do they belong to? Are they really hidden enemies of the corporation? I hope you can be honest." Zheng's heart skipped a beat. "Correct. They are mercenaries of another power that also researches bioengineering. They want to take down the corporation and take its place. Is there any problem?" The voice went silent for a while. The 6 helicopters wiped in 2 minutes. Looking at the video recording of these 2 minutes, this group isn't formed by humans. At least one of them has a non-human form and power. Their weapons are also worth noting. The flaming weapon looked similar to an energy weapon we are currently developing. "Your location is unsafe. We've sent helicopters to the building roof. You need to get there as soon as possible. After you leave the city, we will detonate a nuclear bomb." He then hung up the phone. Zheng felt a chill from the information in the conversation. Destroying 6 helicopters in 2 minutes, and it seemed like the helicopters did no damage to Team Devil. Wasn't this too strong? If it was Team China, they would need to pay a big price to destroy them or rely on the terrain to ambush. However, they didn't have the power to go face to face with the helicopters. "No, we can't head face to face with them." Zheng made a decision and said to Lan, "Let me drive. Hope we can get to the building faster." Lan looked at him with surprise, then she stopped the bus. Zheng sat on the driver's seat and took a deep breath. His eyes went out of focus. He stepped on the gas pedal all the way. Using the unlocked mode to drive was a luxury to those who hadn't obtained it. The bus reached its maximum speed in this wide street that had a lot of abandoned cars. Several in the bus looked pale from the speed. Zheng reduced the rest of the drive to just 20 minutes, surprising even the helicopter pilot. About 10 security guards surrounded them as soon as they exited the bus. The guards pointed their guns at the group, then someone took out a pair of cuffs. Zheng stared at them coldly. He pressed the call button on the satellite phone and there was a cold voice. "You've reached the building. I can see you through the surveillance system." Zheng sneered. "I know what you mean, but I just want to say I am not someone you can manipulate. We are equal in this trade. I've decided to give your board of directors a show to make sure you understand. Yingkong, use the shining. Hung, shoot down the helicopter." There was no holding back anymore. These people were movie characters after all, especially when they belonged to the enemies and threatened their lives. The best way to deal with them was kill, and also to remind the corporation they weren't cheap. Lightning flashed across Yingkong's eyes, then she disappeared. The 3 people nearest to them had their heads separated from the body. A flame was burning on the wound. Yingkong reappeared behind them and made a pulling gesture. Several other guards were cut in half from the waist. When Alice and the others realized what happened, the only guard left standing was the one with the cuffs. Hung raised his bow. 2 arrows flew at the helicopter, one after the other. A mini explosion happened when the latter arrow hit the one in front. Then the arrow pierced the helicopter. A moment later, the helicopter exploded. Zheng said in a cold tone, "Don't make me repeat. We are in a trade. If you want our powers, then show your sincerity." That voice did not say much for a while. Judging through the surveillance system, Team China had shown an insane amount of strength this moment. Of course, they had no idea that these powers couldn't last long, or that Hung was fragile in between shots. They also had to assume the other people were at the same or similar levels. The cold voice said, "Understood. We won't limit your freedom, but keep in mind that the corporation doesn't like to be threatened." Zheng smiled. "No one is threatening the corporation. Aren't this an equal trade?" There was no response. Then the phone hung up. Zheng let out a sigh of relief and said to the others, "Let's go." Wait for the helicopter at the top of the building and also eat some food. Ho ho, stop standing there. Let's go. Moving past the corpses, they followed Zheng into the building. Alice was fairly familiar with its structure since she was a security agent here. Soon after they entered the building, a group of 20 guards ran out. The guards didn't point their guns at the group, perhaps they had received orders. 10 of them went to guard the door while the rest followed behind Zheng to the elevator. A few minutes later, everyone reached the roof. The helicopter hadn't arrived yet. However, there was a large round table with various canned and packaged food. This looked like the most these guards could do in this situation. Zheng did not act polite. He walked over and started eating a can of food by himself. The others shortly followed suit after seeing it. After a difficult day and night, the sun was beginning to rise and they could not hold their hungers. In a series of clapping, a young man walked over to them with a nemesis following him. You are worthy of being the evolved T-virus carrier to enjoy infected food so much. Zheng replied without even raising his head. Do you believe I will take off your head to use for soccer? Don't think that thing behind you can protect you, nor those guards. You should know what happened outside the building. If you don't know, I don't mind showing it again. His smile froze and he laughed awkwardly. Just joking. Of course I know how strong you and your comrades are. I am just curious why people would go after you. I think the helicopters that went after them encountered problems. Otherwise, I should have received reports by now. Can you tell me who those people are? This man probably didn't receive a message from the higher-ups. So he knew the helicopter went to attack Team Devil but not about getting wiped. Zheng finished the can and said. You can go ask your superiors. Don't bother me again. Understand? The man's eyes were filled with anger but when he saw Zheng move his arm, he took a large step back, then turned around and walked away. After he was gone, Zheng said to the others. Everyone listen quietly. When the helicopter comes, we will drive it ourselves. Cheng Xiao, do you know how to pilot a helicopter? Cheng Xiao shook his head. You think I am a special agent? I am just an army doctor. Have you ever seen an army doctor piloting a helicopter? This isn't some YY novel. No such person exists. Carlos said. I can pilot a helicopter, but my skill isn't too good. If you guys don't mind, leave it to me. Zheng nodded in agreement. Good, then you will pilot it. Just fly straight to the checkpoint. We only need to arrive at the checkpoint. Carlos nodded. They continued eating quietly. Honglu suddenly pulled Lan's shirt lightly and pointed to Zheng. Lan understood him and connected their minds. Honglu said. Zheng, I think we should plan what to do if the helicopter crashes. If there's still over 100 kilometers, we should group up and find a defensive spot to wait for Team Devil. Then whether the fight happens or not, they will also have to face the problem of the nuclear strike. The Umbrella Corporation had decided to obtain your evolved T-virus as best as they could, and destroy everything if they can't, so no other people can obtain it. This is especially possible when they are under the impression of the existence of another force. After the helicopter crashes and you don't answer the phone calls, they will probably go through with the nuclear strike. If that happens, I think Team Devil won't have the time to wipe us. They will probably negotiate and complete the missions together with us. We don't know what Team Devil's mission is, but it should be killing or escorting a movie character. I don't think it will be something like stopping the nuclear strike. Because if it is, they wouldn't have killed all the mercenaries sent after them. So these two possibilities are the highest. In other words, we should be able to coexist peacefully. After we bring the characters to the checkpoint, they can do whatever they want with them. Either kill them or take them away. Zheng sighed. It's impossible for peace. Even though I haven't seen them, but I can feel the pressure and killing intent coming from their direction. I can feel that they want to kill us all. There's no way for peace. Continue. Honglu sighed. Fine, even if we can't coexist, we can at least hold out defensively. As long as they think killing us all will have a huge impact on them, we have the basis for negotiation. We can compromise and let them finish their mission first. We just need everyone to survive. Otherwise, they can take the nuclear strike together with us. Zheng asked. Why don't we just find a place to garrison here? Don't we have a higher chance if we make use of Umbrella Corporation's technology? Honglu shook his head. I am betting. We don't know if Team Devil have large AOE weapons or abilities. If they do, all we can do is run. So one ability can wipe us out if we stay in one place. That's why we will only do it when we can't run anymore, like over 100 kilometers away from the checkpoint. If we are close, then I would rather split up in groups and head for the checkpoint. Zheng thought for a moment and agreed to the plan. Do we have to split? Are there any methods or traps that allow us to fight them? Splitting up and run makes us too reactive. It isn't like you. Honglu smiled bitterly. You think I really want to? Strategies and wits are a joke in front of absolute power. Strategies are only useful when both sides are similar in strength or there is something very beneficial to us. Getting in contact with Umbrella Corporation is a strategy, but is it effective? The result of the 6 helicopters had given us the answer. So when it comes to the point that we have to run, we should just split up and run. Considering the difference in our powers, I believe they should be waiting for the helicopter at the top of the Umbrella Corporation building. We can see this from the psyche scan. Even though we cannot scan an area of 7 kilometers in diameter, but that also means they are there. The center of this area is the company building. Given that they stopped in place for over 10 minutes, they must be waiting for the helicopter. Xian said to the others. He was holding a map and pointed to the company building's location. Judging from some signs, Team China's leader has some strategic ability, or someone in their team does. The 6 helicopters indicated this. They attempt to bring Umbrella Corporation into our battle. However, they neglected one thing, interest. Xian adjusted his glasses. This strategist placed too much value on human nature, or he thought too deep into human nature. He thinks the Umbrella Corporation will attack us for their sci-fi weapons, or the powers they exhibited. This thought isn't wrong, but he forgot to consider the most basic interests. When the investment is way over what they can gain, then Umbrella Corporation will simply destroy what they can't obtain. This point is easy to understand. If the corporation decided to attack us with all their forces, then there should be 100 military helicopter here this moment. Only leader can survive such attack. However, this isn't happening, so their plan had failed. Then it is time for them to run. Clone Zhen asked. Tom, what level is your metal manipulation? Can you cause a helicopter to explode? Tom shook his head. It's too far. Even with the psyche force stacking from Amy, I can't control the helicopter to deform and explode. The most I can do is change its direction, like pull it downward. Zhen nodded and said to Xian. Continue on. Xian was as emotionless as always. Their escape is pretty straightforward. They only have two choices when facing an absolute power. One is split up, putting the newbies, the supports, and perhaps that strategist in a group and run. The assassin, archer, and leader will stay behind to ambush us. It will be much easier for an individual to run afterward in a city like this. What we will see is Team China splitting into 4 groups, with 1 high in numbers and 3 others high in fighting powers. I think these 3 people can rival most of us. In order to kill them, we need to. Zhen shook his head and said. Don't make it too complicated. This is one of the choices, what's the other one? Xian nodded. Their other choice is garrison and wait for us to negotiate. Perhaps this is what they really want. Negotiate? Several people asked. Yes. When we have overwhelming advantage, negotiation is their only choice. Furthermore, we are forced to accept it. As long as we can't break into their place, or it will cause too many casualties to break in, we have to accept peace. Then we will complete the missions under our demands. Otherwise, the Umbrella Corporation will give them up if it takes too long. Then the nuclear strike will kill us all. Zheng said. Oh. Isn't this a good plan? Why won't they do it? Xian smiled. Because they are not familiar with us. Similarly, we are not familiar with them. If they really chose to garrison, we have to think thoroughly before we attack into them, or accept their peace. But the strategist is scared. He might think that if we have some form of large AoE weapons or attacks, his whole team will get wiped in an instant if they stay in one place. In this case, they will likely take a risk. They will split up if they can run, and only garrison when they really can't. But in the end, isn't splitting up also a bet? Though instead of dying together, it would be better to put their hopes in the few stronger people. They have a higher chance of going even or running away this way. Zheng said. Under what situation will they run? Or does it just depend on how much hope the choices offer? Correct. If it is impossible to run, they will garrison. If they are close to the checkpoint, they will split. Judging from our distance, we can still chase up to them at 70 kilometers from the checkpoint. So that is the best spot to make them land. On top of the building. The group was taking a quiet rest after eating. Alice walked over to the Nemesis and stared at it. The young man in front of the Nemesis gave her a cold smile. Survivor, how does the T-virus feel? Is it like a euphoria? Alice looked at him coldly. What do you mean by survivor? You better make it clear before I punch your face. He gave a despicable laugh. Survivor is survivor. The company has 2 major bioweapons. The Nemesis uses the T-virus as a dominant part of the body to evolve. The survivor uses the T-virus to stimulate the human bonus potential. You are our only survivor as of now. Unfortunately, your value was taken over almost instantly in terms of strength. The Nemesis is much powerful than the likes of you. Haha. Alice kicked him in the balls. All the men subconsciously covered their crouch with their hands as they heard a cracking sound. They also looked at this man with sympathy. The guards were about to raise their gun, but they quickly put them away when Zheng stood up. Zheng walked over to Alice, who obviously looked lost. She couldn't accept this new identity so suddenly. Though she was not to blame. No normal people could accept themselves as a bioweapon. That only lasted a while. She was more calm than most people. Zheng picked the supervisor man up from the floor and said, I want to kill you now, but it doesn't feel as good to just kill you off. So I have decided to give you more suffering. You will know soon. I hope you can like them. He threw the man back down to the floor. A large helicopter was flying over from afar. This was a transport-type helicopter shaped like a rooster. The space inside could fit dozens of people. At the same time, the phone rang again. Zheng opened the case and picked it up. The helicopter has arrived. I also ordered 3 armed helicopters to escort. I hope to see you in the headquarters. The cold voice hung up as soon as he finished talking. The 3 armed helicopters also came in sight by now. Instead of escorting, they were obviously here to keep a watch on him, since a transport helicopter couldn't do anything against an armed one in the air. Everyone get into the helicopter first. Following their plan, Zheng threw the 2 pilots out as soon as he entered. Then Carlos began to pilot it. The armed helicopters didn't come down and waited for them in air. The transport helicopter flew up and quickly followed behind the armed ones headed to the checkpoint. The speed was day and night compared to driving on the ground. They had passed the 100-kilometer mark from the checkpoint within several minutes. Just a while longer and they could finish the movie at least, escaping Team Devil. Hello, everyone. I am Zheng Jia. Jill suddenly spoke in a man's voice, Zheng's voice. Everyone looked at her in shock. She continued. Brute forcing through the psyche force interference can't last long, so I will make it short. You are getting close to the checkpoint and we need a lot of time to catch up. So you have to land. Don't worry, our mission required characters are still on the helicopter, so we won't destroy it. Zheng, the me before getting cloned, come see me. I am waiting. Suddenly the alarm started ringing and the helicopter was falling straight down. The helicopter had started falling before everyone came back from the shock. They all grabbed onto something nearby in reflex. Carlos yelled. The helicopter is getting pulled down. Everyone stand firm. The helicopter crashed onto a street and slid a long distance before hitting a wall. Fortunately, this military helicopter didn't explode. But everyone inside took a hit from the collision. The helicopter was bent out of shape, several people had their faces full of blood, and LJ's arm dislocated. As soon as his sense came back, Carlos yelled. Get out. It's going to explode. He grabbed the two people near him and ran to the exit. The others also helped the wounded up and ran out of the helicopter. Once outside, they saw the fuel tank was indeed leaking. Everyone began to run for their lives. Just some distance in before it exploded, the helicopter turned into a fireball and the shop next to it collapsed. They ran for 10 more meters then stopped panting. Zheng yelled. Lan, the current distance. Zheng was going to take out the phone and have the corporation order the armed helicopters to take them in. However, those helicopters also started falling before he even opened the case. These helicopters crashed into buildings and exploded at once. We have no choice. Hurry and run. Zheng smiled bitterly. Lan said. Still 70 kilometers from the checkpoint. There's a parking lot 3 kilometers ahead. We should be able to find a car. Zheng took a deep breath. Go, we will talk as we run. Lan, give me an image of the map around us. Lan sent the image of the psyche scan to Zheng's mind. He could focus on a location with his mind and zoom in. Several minutes later, Zheng said. We will fight here. According to their plan, if the distance was less than 100 kilometers, they would split up. Zheng would ambush Team Devil. He could also simulate Zero to snipe at a long distance. Yingkang would hide beside him and attack anyone that comes near. Hung would stay even farther away. His mission was to protect Zheng and Yingkang. The charged shot and focus ability gave him enough power to kill anyone with his first shot. Or at least incapacitate the enemy. Although they were separated into 3 groups, their attacks synergized with each other in this complex terrain. Just the 3 of them could stop Team Devil for at least half an hour. So that they couldn't chase up to the other group. The last group consisting of Honglu, Chengxiao, Lan, the newbies, and the movie characters were heading to the checkpoint. Lan connected the 3 attackers to the soul link and Honglu would think of ways for them to escape or attack. Chengxiao was the group's last line of defense. Because aside from the movie characters, this group was powerless. We will separate into 4 groups. It's easier for the 3 of us to run alone in this terrain. Even if we can't run, we can kill a person, have the rest of the team live. You must reach the checkpoint as fast as possible. If you die, our points will also go into the negatives. Then the result will be a wipe. Zheng said calmly. He continued looking at the map. This will be the sniping spot. It was the most complex area and beyond it were highways. If Team Devil wanted to chase after the big group, they would have to get past Zheng and Hung snipes. We will leave this to fate. They continued running and soon reached the parking lot. Several zombie dogs came out. These dogs looked bigger and more muscular than before. Their bodies were full of tentacles instead of rotted, like taken over by a parasite. They gunned the dogs into pieces before they could jump. After several fights with zombies, everyone became more calm, including the camcorder woman and LJ. Relling even burst a dog's head with her Desert Eagle. Our team is strong. We have the potential and reasons to keep becoming stronger. So please, God, don't let my comrades die here. Zheng thought to himself and headed first into the parking lot. Suddenly, he sensed something on top. When he raised his head, there were several zombies hanging on the ceiling. The tentacles on these zombies were absorbing a lot of corpses, and even a creeper. Carlos screamed and began firing at them. The gunshot startled these tentacle zombies. Then one dropped down to the ground. Zheng immediately took out a grenade and pulled the ring. He counted the time instead of throwing it out. When the time was up, he threw it at the ceiling then turned around, pushed everyone to the ground. The explosion followed right after behind him. The whole parking lot trembled, making them suspect if it was going to collapse. They looked back inside after the trembling stopped. The grenade exploded before it fell to the ground, so the cars weren't damaged too much. Only some windows were shattered and the larger vehicles destroyed. Zheng smiled bitterly. He led everyone to a compact and said, 4 people a car. Don't waste time choosing. Find a sports car and start driving. Hung, Yingkang, and I will stay together. Go choose. Remember, go straight for the checkpoint. Don't fall behind or something. Chengxiao, I will leave them to you. Chengxiao paused for a moment when he heard it, then said in a serious tone. I can't promise about the men, but I will protect the girls. It's shameful to let a girl get hurt before a man dies. Rest assured. I will do what I promised. Zheng sighed as he looked at everyone. Whether it was Lan, Honglu, the newbies, or the movie characters were all people he fought with and depended on during this time. Now it was time for him to fight with his life for them. 200 kilometers from the checkpoint. Clone Zheng crouched on the floor as the coach drove casually. It's about time. Tom, where are they? Tom shrugged. Can't track them anymore. I used too much energy back then. Still having a headache now. Amy, what about you? Still tracking them? Zheng said. Amy was a girl with blonde wavy hair. She laughed. Of course. But I can't break through her psyche force interference alone, so I can only know their approximate location. They should be at 20 kilometers from the checkpoint. Zheng stood up and took out a ring from his pocket. Then we should start to get serious. The usual rules. Main combatants have the right to kill one upon capturing them. The rest goes to the team. Their unlocked members must wait for my distribution. He took out several metallic boards from the ring. A West European man said with a smile. This sky stick is such useful. Why didn't Qian make a few more? Isn't it better to equip everyone with one instead of having to squeeze 2 people on one? Qian took a board and said. Materials are expensive and takes too long to create. I can consider it after this movie. The man laughed out loud. He grabbed Amy and kissed her on the face. Haha, remember what you said? I've been wanting one for so long. If it doesn't cost a rank B reward, I would have exchanged one myself. How is the analysis with the Zyuchen, cultivation, writing we obtained from the Legend of Ziu? Shit, those people are game breaking. Lucky our mission didn't have any conflict with them. Otherwise, any no-name was enough to wipe us on by himself. I want to learn those techniques too. Xian stood on a sky stick and said calmly. The result is it takes 50 years to complete the foundation stage without enhancements from God. I can give you the training method if you want. 2 handguns appeared on his hand. He shot a circle on the ceiling of the coach then flew out on the sky stick. 20 kilometers from the checkpoint. Team China were driving several cars on the road to the checkpoint. The cars could never pick up their speed due to the many broken vehicles on the road, and the fires on some sections. Their speed hovered around just 20 kilometers. It took an hour for them to reach the last buildings before the highway to the checkpoint. The highway section was just open fields and didn't have the terrain for a fight. Lan could only connect 3 people to the soul link, but that was enough for them now. She only need to send the 3 main combatants the result of the scan. Everyone else just had to keep going straight ahead. Zhen, Yingkang, and Hung looked as the cars drove off. Then they carefully examined the buildings in this area. There were 5 skyscrapers and the rest were just 10-meter tall buildings and residential houses. Many stores on the sides of the streets and complex valleys. After God changed the plot and the size of the city, this area became immense. The terrain was perfectly suitable for sniping. As soon as Team Devil passes this place, it would be their opportunity to stop them here. The checkpoint was just over 20 kilometers away from this place. The big group should reach it in about an hour, though only if nothing happens on the way. After the 3 combatants left, the group's strength was very low. Fortunately, they got the help of the movie characters and Alice also unlocked her genetic constraint. It shouldn't be difficult as long as they don't encounter Team Devil. The 3 of them found their spot. Yingkang went into stealth in a valley. Zheng entered a skyscraper. Hung climbed to the top of a clock tower. He was just 3,000 meters away from Zheng and could look down at the valleys. Zheng sat on the edge of the building. The crowded houses and valleys gave him a little nausea so he had to look past them. It was dark but there was a hint of light by the horizon. People always said that the darkest time of the day was right before dawn. Zheng took out a pack of cigarette and lit one but he didn't smoke it. Because he touched the cigarette butt with his other hand. That was the only item left from his comrade of the past. Zheng thought for a while then put that cigarette butt into his ring. He also saw a sachet in the ring. That was the present from Lan before entering this movie, a present she made by hand. How could a man understand a girl's feelings? Especially since he already had Lori. He was sorry for Lan's love, and this guilt became a baggage on him. Even though Lan looked cool but he knew a part of it was just acting. Zheng lay down and looked up to the starry sky. Numerous thoughts crossed his mind. He didn't know why but he felt that he would change drastically after today, such an indescribable feeling. Then comrades that had died suddenly appeared in his mind, Xian, Zero, Tenji, Ji. Every one of them made him a little more mature. He once read that growing up was a kind of pain, so painful journey signified growth. When he first entered this world, all that was on his mind was the fear of dying. He struggled. He gave all he had to live. Just the simple desire to live. Then he created the girl of his dream. His desire became stronger. He wanted to live and live with her, even if that was just for 10 more days. He needed to become stronger. However, Xian's actions let him know that as someone with power, wanting to live by himself and wanting everyone to live were different concepts. As a leader, he had to choose between cruelty and sacrifices. Xian gave him his first lesson on leadership and Zero and Tenji showed him that comrades will sacrifice themselves for each other. What were the values of comrades? Giving the safety of his back to each other's then focus on the enemies in front because they believed their comrades could block all attacks from behind, even if that meant their lives. Lan and the others were putting their safety in his hands now. He had to block off this place and stop Team Devil so his comrades could go back to God's dimension. His comrades taught him, and touched his heart. Then Ji's existence made him feel grief. It was a feeling of being unable to escape. He would never have believed that Ji was a guide if the words didn't come from his mouth. Such a happy man that liked to laugh was a program God created. If he was a program then what were those people that were living with no dreams, and didn't know what they lived for? He could never forget that smell of cigarette when he first entered this world, and the relief and sorrow of Ji after his defeat. Zheng took out the sniper rifle from his ring. He knew he was not alone. No one could survive by himself in this world. So he needed comrades. And the help of these comrades made him grow. He will keep becoming stronger because he was carrying on the strength of those who died. He was not alone. Never will be.